Live from Fasig-Tipton in Lexington, Kentucky, it's Prime Time Racing's presentation of Lexington Live, brought to you by Harness Racing Update and Preferred Equine. It's night one of the 2025 Lexington Selected Yearling Sale, and we're expecting many fireworks on what's always a highly anticipated evening each and every year in the harness racing industry. Absolutely beautiful day here in Lexington, and that's the conditions we will see all week long. If you're not with us here in the Bluegrass, well, we're glad that you're able to tune on in and enjoy our coverage here on Prime Time Racing. And welcome on the desk, Mark McKelvey with Michael Carter. And Michael Carter, 2 days we're going to bring some live coverage here of the 2025 Lexington Selected Yearling Sale. 2 out of 5 days in total. This is a busy week, and a week, like I mentioned right off the top, that everybody in the sport, owners, trainers alike, have got circled as they try to find their next champions.
121 yearlings will sell tonight. We're going to see maybe harness racing's next great champion walk across the stage. We've got some really nice horses on tonight's program, including a half-brother to Carl, who was a Hambletonian champion in his own right. So we're going to see what happens tonight. Like you said, there are going to be a lot of fireworks, and will we see one of those horses eclipse $1 million?
I think there's a very good chance that's what we'll see here tonight. And as you mentioned, there's going to be a little over 100 horses, a little over 120 that'll go through the sales ring this evening. It's kind of a select group, so to speak. It is a select sale, but night one is really kind of the cream of the crop, so to speak. Not to say that we're not going to see some big tickets come up on days 2 and 3, but tonight we're expecting some big time totals. Let's talk about some of those totals and some of those numbers as we move into the 2025 edition of the Lexington Selected Yearling Sale. Looking at the average sale price over the last 5 years, it's probably not a surprise back in 2020 during that COVID year that we see an average of $50,000. Since then, though, it has been steadily moving up and now kind of plateauing over the last 3 years. 2022, $73,000 was the average price, $71,000 in 2023, and last year back up to $72,000. I think it's safe to say that is a very impressive number, and anything around that is probably great. That being said, I'm getting the vibe from a lot of folks around the sales grounds here and throughout the industry. There's a good chance that average price could be even a little higher this year.
Yeah, I would agree. And what's interesting is you see from 2023 to 2024, the average price went up and the number of horses went down. We're actually going to have more horses this year selling at this Lexington Selected Yearling Sale. And like you said, the prices are probably going to be much higher this year. So we'll see what that average price kind of jumps up over the next few days.
Yeah, when you talk to the consigners, you talk to those that put on these sales, they'll talk a little bit, though, about the median price. Average, as you mentioned, when you're bringing in more horses, there's a chance it could dip. But again, I think it's going to be it's a strong market, and it's a strong market on the trotting side, Mike. I look here tonight, and Walner is figuring very prominently on night number 1. There are so many Walners all throughout the sale, but that being said, with the number here this evening, I don't think it's a case of you come here, and if you don't get the one that you're looking for, I'll just move on to the next one. I just think it's going to be a healthy and competitive for each and every one of those that goes through the ring.
Yeah, I would agree. It's kind of like in range in the state of Ohio, right? The in ranges this year went for some seriously high prices. And, you know, as you went through the sales book, a lot of those trotters were in ranges. But I was talking with trainer Jeff Nysonger earlier this afternoon, and he said those in ranges were really hard to come by. So those Walners might be hard to come by throughout the night as well.
Well, we'll keep our eye as the night rolls along. A couple other stallions that I do want to touch upon. Bulldog Hanover is one of them, and the world champion. This is not his first crop, but some are looking at it like it really is. He had essentially a test crop at the end of his 3-year-old season going into 4 where he pulled double duty. Those horses are on the track this season, so it was a limited number last year. Some of them sold right here in Lexington, but that was before he became that world champion. 145-4, the fastest standardbred of all time. He gets that mark at 4, has an incredible season capped off, winning many marquee races, including the Canadian Pacing Derby and the Breeders' Crown. And now the quality of mares has certainly stepped up. We're going to see 6 Bulldog Hanovers here this evening. I'm in the camp that they're going to bring quite a bit of money. I think you probably echo those sentiments.
Yeah, the first of 6 Bulldog Hanovers will actually be hip number 3. That's Debonair, consigned by the Hunted Inn Farm. Baby, You're the Best. This is the first yearling sold for $200,000 at the 2023 Lexington Selected Yearling Sale. And the second dam has 3 earners of over $100,000. So Baby, You're the Best could team up with Bulldog Hanover for a popular result here this evening.
Yeah, and we'll see see if some of those connections that were a part of Bulldog Hanover, Brad Grant, Jack Darling, I know they're both in attendance. I've seen them walk by, see if they tried to nab, as of course they were big time supporters of that first group that sold last season. And I think with some of the mares that Bulldog Hanover got from this next crop, they are definitely going to be certainly highly interested. Looking at tonight's numbers, night number 1, that's usually where, as I mentioned, you see the fireworks and you see those big time tickets. Last year, our sale topper was $925,000, and that was a trotting filly. I'm in the camp that a trotting filly will probably lead the way again with just some of the quality that we're going to see. But night number 1 really makes up a good chunk of what ends up being the final sale total. And as you can see right there, we are talking 20 plus million in each of the last 3 years. And as you saw from the average price, no surprise, the last couple of years have really mirrored each other.
Yeah, it's funny that you mention some of the trotting fillies on the trotting side, because there's one later on this evening. The second dam is the queen herself, Be a Magician, and it is the only horse that is an Ohio bred that is going to be on tonight's program. It is a ready for money, and we talked a little bit about what those trotting fillies will do. This is a trotter that I'm really looking forward to see can maybe put the state of Ohio from a personal standpoint on the map.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a close eye on what's going on in Ontario, and to have Bulldog Hanover standing there is just such a big get. Of course, he was an Ontario Sire Stakes star, but for him to stay home and for his connections to allow him to set up shop there, that is going to be a big time impact on the Ontario industry. What's interesting is Cattle Wash, another young stallion. There's a few of them sprinkled in throughout the early sessions of this sale, but Cattle Wash is just dominating in Ontario this year. Of course, he's got that undefeated colt in Bojangles, recently the winner of the Metro Pace. Cattle Wash is going to get some company when you get some of these Bulldog Hanovers that are going to step into that OSS scene come next season. Speaking of some other first crop stallions and some young stallions in the sport, I'm very intrigued to look at these Al Raja 1s and Acurie Ds. Al Raja 1s, again, it's a small crop for him. Acurie D, we saw what he did when he came over here to North America. Okas Fonstead has just had tremendous success bringing those imports in and winning marquee races here in North America. That European flavor, I think, is a nice little added mix, because really when you talk about the Lexington sale, Mike, it is not just a sale for those here in Kentucky, the United States, Canada. It really is on a global stage when you talk about the sport of harness racing. Yeah, there are several, as I went through the first night of horses, where there's completely international. You don't know what they're going to bring. We don't know exactly what they're going to do. Al Raja 1, one of my favorites. Of course, you got to call Al Raja 1 a couple of years ago. He's back. And, it's always fun to kind of see these horses that we've seen participate really well in these stakes races, to see what they can kind of bring on in their lineage later in life. All right. Well, coming up later tonight, we are going to have a couple more members of our broadcast team that we will introduce you to, and they are going to be getting their steps in, to say the least. It is a big grounds here. Obviously, a lot of action going on in the sales pavilion, in the back ring. We've got a pretty good spot set up here, just kind of under a bit of a gazebo, so to speak, out here on the patio at Fasig-Tipton. And it's not really – there's not a bad spot around here, is there, Mike? No, you can bid from just about anywhere. You can bid online. You can bid from the awning underneath of us. There's a great bar behind us. There's a great bar in the corner here. So plenty of places to eat, drink, and bid on all of the horses coming into the ring tonight. Heather Vitale, Jamie McDonald, two more members of our broadcast team, and they are going to be going out and about getting some interviews, getting some instant reaction as well, as we hope to catch up with some of the, not just those who are selling, the consigners, but also those that are going to shell out some pretty good coin here on night number 1 to try and find their next champion. So without further ado, let's bring in Jamie McDonald. As a little bit earlier, just before we got things going here this evening, she had an opportunity to catch up with Joe Thompson.
Joe Thompson joins us now from Winback. And Joe, before we get into kind of what's going on this week or tonight, tell us your involvement. You're the owner of Winback.
I'm the owner of Winback, me and my wife and I. So I wouldn't say that I make all the decisions. So there's a lot of people, and we have a lot of really good people that work for us, and that's how it all works. So we sell a lot of horses every year. We sold a lot of horses over the years. Been relatively successful. Put a lot of horses in hands of people that have won with them. In fact, I think that we're very close to 50,000 wins since 1998, and we've won almost $500 million of horses. So, somebody won a lot of money, and I can guarantee you they won more money than we got for the horses. So they did good.
They don't know how much they sell for, do they?
They do not know how much they sell for, and it's always good to see people that buy your horses and do well with them, because they'll come back.
Absolutely. And, you have more than one farm. You're, by borderal. So you've got some in Canada, some down in the States. So tell us kind of how that teeter-totter works and where each one goes, or where the studs stand, what makes most sense for each journey.
I think each horse or each stallion that you stand, they had a particular place that they were popular and where they won, and that's probably where they ought to stand. And then the other thing you want to look at, though, is you want to look at the economics and make sure that wherever you stand the horse, that the people who breed to him and race the offspring will do well. So, in these states that have really good sire stakes program, that's a good place for them to be. But obviously you want all your horses to do well, and you love them to be in the Grand Circuit and the big races, and you hope the people that buy them will nominate them for those races, because that's where they win a lot of money and so forth. But you still have that. Today, the sire stakes programs, there's so much money involved with it that people can do very well. In fact, I think there's another horse this year that'll win over $1 million without ever leaving Canada. Interesting enough, we had a horse, I don't know how many years ago it's been, that we sold. His name was Sir Luck, and I think he was the first horse ever to win $1 million and not leave Canada.
Amazing, having bred that horse and have it from your farm.
That's right. Thank goodness, right?
Yeah,
So,
better you than, when it's yours.
That's right. So anyway, that's the business. The business we're in is trying to raise champions, and we have a lot of people that dedicate their life to it. So, every year, some people ask me who we're in competition with. To me, we're in competition with ourselves. How can we do better than we did last year? How can our horses do better? What kind of feed can we use? Can we improve the hay? Can we improve the health program? Yeah. So the mares need to be, some mares need to move along. Unfortunately, some of them are kind of like pets. I'm really attached to them because I've been selling their babies for a long time.
Yeah. And, speaking of, changing things up, and what about your marketing strategies? How does that work differently between Canada and the U.S.? Like, obviously, everyone kind of crosses the border to buy and go to each sale, but there's got to be a difference between the ones and how you're doing it at each location.
Well, I think that, we love this sale. The Red Mile, the Fassig-Tipton sale, to me, that's the best sale there is. And Harrisburg's a good sale as well. But then Canada, the horses that we sell in Canada, maybe somebody doesn't want to come down here to buy them, but we still keep a lot of good horses, and they're by the right horses, and hopefully our broodmare band will carry us. Yeah. And then New York is the same thing. We breed a lot of horses in New York. We breed a lot of horses in Canada, Maryland, Delaware. That's where we're located, so we breed some there as well. But, you try to breed so that people who buy your horses will do well.
And what about dual eligibility? Do you do a lot of that?
We do a lot of it. We'll have mares that'll come to Kentucky. We'll have mares that'll go to Pennsylvania. We keep mares in New York, and we have mares that stay in Canada. So, hopefully we've chosen the right ones to be in the right location, and people will be able to benefit from it.
Now, do you find that the owners and trainers that are buying dual eligible have more choices and more options? Just in general, are they being looked at more than not?
I think so. I think they do look at the dual eligibility. Now, the thing about Kentucky is they made the mare eligible, and all of a sudden, the competition here is about as good as it is on the Grand Circuit. So if you can win in Kentucky, you can just about win anywhere. But it does take, people will come to Kentucky because it's convenient, it's a wonderful place to race, it's a good place to train and so forth. And the beauty of that is it leaves some of these other places with some vacuums where you can make some, you can do some good racing and win some races where some of the other horses might not be there. So the competition might not be as tough.
And like you said, there's lots of money on all the circuits and, getting more and more, which is amazing. On your side of it, of course, it starts, with the choosing mares and stallions and deciding who goes best with whom. And what kind of process and how many team members are involved in that?
Everybody. But, Jack Burke is the manager, and Liz Cheeseman she's our PR person, and she's very good with pedigrees, and she's done a good job. So they kind of go through it first, and then I go through it, and then Jimmy Gladwick, who's our yearling manager, he kind of goes through it to see if we've made a mistake and sold horses, yearlings by a mare that maybe didn't come out as well as it should have, so we can change all that. And then our vet looks at the mares to see which ones are going to be fertile and which ones are good crosses. And some of the stallions, as you know, are not as fertile as they ought to be, and so you try to avoid breeding those horses to mares that are not fertile. Or if they have a conformation defect, you try to overcome that.
And how about, let's get into this week here. Tonight you've got 3, but overall, how is your week kind of setting up? Lots of interest here so far?
So far, it's been good. You know, you got people that come by and want to see every one of them, but some of them are going through the catalog for other people. Yep. But we've had a really good showing here, and just about the people that need to see them have seen them. So, but as the week goes on, they'll come back and look at them again. Now we only have 3 tonight, but we have like 14, 15 tomorrow night, and then we have 20 or so, and 20 or so on Thursday, and then, you know, the rest of them are selling the last night. So it should be a good week for us. But we have a really good team to show horses. Yeah. I think I'll put my team up against anybody, anywhere, and they do a great job showing horses, and the horses have a good disposition. I think that's very important when you're training horses.
I mean, of course, like this whole conversation, we've got one in the background here, you know, good as gold. So there's nothing better than to see that. And number 9 tonight.
Number 9, yeah.
Good number.
It's a good number. He's our first horse, and so he should do good. Let's look at him in just a second. You want to do that? Look at him. So it's first foal out of Chapter 7, and you know, Chapter 7's been very popular and nice horse, and we should do very well with him. And Chapter 7s have been, you know, I think as far as trotters are concerned, he's right up there at the top of the list as well, as far as being a stallion and producing champions. And the other thing is he's in New York, so, you know, you do have that fallback position. And this horse, he's not a giant horse, he's not a real big horse, but that kind of fits for half-mile racing, kind of fits for New York. So she should do very well. And she's the first foal out of the mare.
Just in general with everyone here, how is the excitement as, you know, they go into the ring or they're getting ready and brush to head down to the back ring before they head out?
I think everybody gets excited. Everybody likes to look. Everybody likes to do it. So, you know, we've been to a lot of sales and we sell a lot of horses. So, you know, when they do well, you have a little bit of celebration for about 2 seconds, and then when they sell bad, you turn the page. Mm-hmm. So, and you get to do it again, and you know, that's what we do. We raise horses. We sell yearlings.
Well, congratulations, you know, on the multiple wins, on the multiple earnings on both sides of the border, and good luck tonight and this week.
Thank you very much. Enjoy being with you. Thank you, Jane.
All right, we're back here on the desk. Good to hear from Joe Thompson. Winback Farms hopefully going to have a real good sale, Mike. And we heard him talk about number 9 right there. That one's going to be coming to the ring very shortly. In fact, number 1 is in the ring right now, so we'll get that up in just a second. But there's one that you've got your eye on from the Winback consignment coming up tomorrow, and it is from a stallion that we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it's going to be a cattle wash colt. It's Ontario eligible, bus in motion. It is going to be hip number 175. And what brought my interest to this horse was they brought this horse out probably 8 or 9 times while I was standing over there this afternoon. It's a very popular colt by Cattle Wash, so it'll be interesting to see what this horse will bring tomorrow night.
All right, well, we are underway. As you can see, the horses come into the ring, and we've already had a pretty big announcement here at the Lexington Selected Yearling Sales right off the hop. They chose to make a big announcement that impacts the 2027 Breeders' Crown. Interesting, they're choosing to do it here on night 1 of the sale. Kurt Becker, who is one of the pedigree readers here at the sale, had the honor to announce that the 2027 Breeders' Crown is going to come right here to Lexington at the Red Mile as they join into that rotation. First of all, it's fantastic that we're going to see an event like that coming back to the Bluegrass. I mean, this is really the heart of horse country, and to have 12 championship races of that caliber at the Red Mile will be exceptional, but also how great it is for the sport to have another track coming into the mix.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with Scioto picking it up next year, 2 years from now, the Red Mile. Damon Thayer has been a big proponent of bringing the big championship event of the Breeders' Crown to the Red Mile, and mission accomplished, as now Red Mile will get to host it in 2027.
Yeah, going to be fantastic, and we'll try and catch up with some of those that are involved in making that all happen, whether that be on the Red Mile side, of course, with the Hambletonian Society, as Heather and Jamie are roaming the ground. So there you go. The first horse is sold here for 2025. Hip number 1, it was a filly by Tactical Landing, brings $190,000. She was out of the Cantab Hall mare, Pin Chronos. That one had already produced 3 winners. So $190,000 for a trotting filly right off the hop. And nothing against this filly, but it wasn't one of those pedigrees that just certainly popped off the page like some of these do here tonight. So probably pretty indicative of how strong the market's going to be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And as we flip over to hip number 2, Captain Valentine Sargent. This is a Captain Treacherous Bay colt, and this is probably a little bit more of a prestigious colt, so to speak. The dam Scarlet Hanover. This is the first yearling out of the dam. Solid producing second dam, though, and from a handicapping standpoint, I like to look at the progeny of the second dam.
Yeah, and Scarlet Hanover had a real good chance to watch her up close and personal in Ontario, as she has by Bettor's Delight and had a lot of success in the Ontario Sire Stakes, but as well got plenty of accolades when it came to year-end honors in Canada as an O'Brien Award winner at 2 and 3. This is her first foal. There's always so much intrigue in those first foals. Yep. The other thing I keep an eye on, and I've certainly highlighted on my pages, will be those first colts, because you'll get some of those mares who only have fillies to start, and I know there's a lot of people get intrigued by the first colt. Here, first foal, first colt, it's a Captain Treacherous, and for Captain Treacherous, that longevity is starting to show. I know it doesn't feel like it was all that long ago when he was having his incredible racing career, but yeah, it's been over a decade now, and obviously he's had tremendous success as a stallion, and I don't think he's really going to slow down or go anywhere. He might not be at the top this year, but he's certainly still right in the mix.
Yeah, what do you think? 2017, 2018, it's hard to believe it was that long ago that we saw him racing, and as young as you and I are, 7 or 8 years ago, it kind of passes us by a little bit.
I think time has gone by on you pretty quick, Mike. 2013. 2013.
Was it 2013?
Yes, 2013.
Holy
he won
smokes.
the North America Cup, Meadowlands Pace, and just had an incredible go. So $105,000 is the final price that you're going to get for hip number 2, Captain Valentine Sargent, a Captain Treacherous colt. It's a real, if you're a trotting person, this is the night really for you. And I was talking earlier with someone, they were wondering how many buyers are here that are looking for pacers. Are some of them maybe sort of shifting their focus to later on and yearling sales that'll come up later in the year because it is so trotting heavy, especially here on night number 1. Yep. I didn't necessarily agree, only because of the fact that everyone who's who in this industry in terms of prominent owner, prominent trainers, they're here, they're doing their homework.
Correct.
And you saw it here, especially today with the amount of traffic back at the barns.
Yeah, everybody's got to do their homework, right? You see our pages are really highlighted. Some of these owners and these trainers that are coming to check these horses out, they're really inspecting. They're looking for anything that could potentially be, an abnormality, something that they don't like, but they're looking for the things that they do like as well. And, seeing the sire statistics this year, you've got the Sweet Lou's, the Captain Treacherouses, the Bettor's Delights, 1, 2, 3 right off the rip. And, some of these top sired horses are really kind of what they're looking at.
Yes, we'll bring up a graphic here in a moment that's going to outline who the top sires were at the 2024 Lexian Select Sale. As we get rolling along as well and we get the results coming in terms of who has bought these horses, we will have a ticker going across the bottom that will update you on who has made these purchases. Of course, you can go to the Lexian Selected Yearling Sale website and see those results as well, but we'll try and give you as much info as we pick it up as we roll right along. Hip number 3 finishing up there, that was Debonair. That is a bay colt by Bulldog Hanover. So there's the first of 6 Bulldog Hanovers to go, and goes for $170,000. That was just the second foal out of a Captain Treacherous mare. Captain Treacherous, I think, is going to have a real good go as a broodmare sire. More on that in a moment. Let's take a look at the top sires in terms of average price last year. Yep. No surprise, Mike, Wallner in Chapter 7 really showed the way. You see those Bulldog Hanovers. There was plenty of intrigue from a small group when there was only 9 of them. Wallner, though, I think poised to, again, lead the charge here in 2024.
Yeah, I would say so. You've got your Muscle Hills. The Chimpanzees were very interesting last year as well, selling for an average price of $97,357. But on the trotting side of things, the all-age trotting sire this year currently is Chapter 7, with Wallner a close second, Muscle Hill third. So I think those 3 are going to continue to be the top-selling sires. And as we see the price ticking up with hip number 4 here, I've got to note the dam sales average, $315,800. $333. We're at $500,000 on hip number 4 already.
Yeah, we're talking about a sibling here to the likes of Mission Brief and Tactical Landing. Regally bred here is hip number 4, Tyndall. This is a Kentucky eligible filly by Chimpanzee, and this is going to help that Chimpanzee average, to say the least, getting one like this right off the go. And trotting fillies, again, they are there's a big price tag that's going to be slapped on these ones. They're coming at a premium, and as you can see, we're already creeping up into pretty high territory here. 5 winners for Southwind Serena, that first dam of this filly in the ring. 5 winners. You're talking about world champions like Mission Brief, and then you're talking about Tactical Landing, who's become such a prominent stallion.
Yep.
But I'm always a little wary of those first dams that are getting a little bit older. That said, I think there's been some pretty good examples in recent years that really doesn't have to be a reason to write them off.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, it's so interesting to watch kind of how these dams produce. You know, the unraced dams are really kind of interesting to me because, you know, you get into those horses that didn't race and they are producing some of harness racing's top tier talent as we're approaching $800,000 here on hip number 4, Tyndall. The dam here, Southwind Serena, the horses that have the dam have earned $3.1 million in career earnings so far throughout their careers. So it'll be interesting to see what Tyndall will do here.
So $800,000, that's going to be where the hammer falls here on hip number 4. That's the exact same price that this filly's brother, Tactical Landing, sold for. $800,000, sold right here at the Lexington sale back in 2016. Night number 1 was hip number 70, and that average that you were reading out for Southwind Serena,
going way up.
It just went up once again. So I think right there the tone has been set in terms of what these trotting fillies are going to command here on night number 1. As we continue on with this evening's session, we do invite you to drop some comments along wherever you are watching, whether that be on YouTube or Facebook, on the Harness Racing Update page, Primetime Racing's accounts. We will try and get to some of those comments if you have some questions, if you have some thoughts. I always think it's fun to throw out there, who do you think is going to be the sale topper? Maybe we just saw it, $800,000. That's pretty high. That being said, $925,000 was the price last year. That was for the sale topper, but we'll get to those comments in just a little bit. Now, this is going to be very fluid, Mike, because this isn't your traditional show. It isn't a racing broadcast in terms of here's a race, here's the winner's circle, the payouts. All right, let's now turn it over to the next race, and we got 15, 20 minutes to wait. No, this is just going to keep rolling as the night goes along. So bear with us, because a lot's going to happen on the fly, including right now. I've been told in my ear that Heather is standing by. Guest.
Lots of excitement already in the sales ring this evening, but I have some other exciting news. On the racetrack, it was just announced that the 2027 Breeders' Crown will be held at the Red Mile. I have the COO of the Breeders' Crown, Hambletonian Society, Moira Fanning, with me. Now, how did this come about to have the Breeders' Crown at the Red Mile?
Well, we're always looking to strengthen the rotation of host tracks. We've had great partners in Woodbine and in Meadowlands, in Hoosier Park. We're going to Scioto Downs in 2026. And the Red Mile, of course, is the epicenter of everybody's favorite place to go and favorite track to be on. And they've been talking about to make it happen.
Has there ever been a Breeders' Crown at the Red Mile?
In October 5th, 1984 was the very first Breeders' Crown, and it was at the Red Mile. It was won by Workaholic, and he was the kickoff to a series that was 40-some years ago. There was another Mare Pace held here in 1987 that was won by Follow My Star. So 2 times they've hosted, and now they're going to host all 12.
Okay, well, it is 2025 right now. Let's live in the present. Let's give a little plug for this year's Breeders' Crown.
This year's Breeders' Crown, I think our Woodbine Mohawk Park is our longest hosting track. We've had more Breeders' Crowns in Canada than anywhere else. They're marvelous partners, and I hope everybody comes. It's October 24th and 25th, and you'll see tomorrow the Breeders' Crown Charity Challenge with several stallion breedings auctioned. They've already got a great kickoff to the charity effort up there. Brad Grant, Marvin Katz, Serge Godin, and I don't want to forget the last person, but anyway, it's the place to be at the end of October.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Moira. And guys, we'll get back to the action in the sales ring.
Great. Thank you so much, Heather, and thank you so much, Moira Fanning. George Millar, the other member of that Breeders' Crown Charity Challenge Quartet, and that will come up tomorrow. We'll have an opportunity to bring that to you right here on these pages, the Breeders' Crown Charity Challenge cocktail reception and that charity auction with those stallion, the breedings that are going to be made available, a breeding for the 2026 season. But let's not bury the lead. Let's go back. I think we got to put a bow on that conversation about the Red Mile Breeders' Crown 2027. I'd love to talk about Breeders' Crown 2025. The good news is I'm going to have, after tonight, every day in the lead up to mid-October. But for 2027, how excited is that to hear? I know we talked about it off the top, but your initial reaction to hearing that news.
Listen, the Midwest is going to get 2 of the next 3 Breeders' Crowns, and that is super exciting as far as I'm concerned. We see a lot of Breeders' Crowns in Canada, you guys being the longest-serving host of the Breeders' Crown. We see a lot up and down the East Coast. It's always cool to see it come to Pennsylvania, but to see it come to Ohio and Kentucky is really cool. And the Red Mile, what better place to have it than the Red Mile? The weather is probably going to be picture perfect unless you get that random snowstorm, which is always possible here.
Yeah, it's always possible for any Breeders' Crown. Doesn't matter, where it goes or what time of the year. But to see it at the Red Mile, I think that'll be great. I thought the racing last Saturday, for example, was terrific in terms of you could win from off the pace, you could win up front. The one thing about the game as the speed just continues to get heavier and heavier is, you're looking for level playing field. You don't really want to see those biased. You want to see everybody have a chance, and I think when we get to 2027, the Breeders' Crown here at the Red Mile can certainly present that. So we'll talk more about that as the night rolls along. Thanks so much to Moira Fanning for stepping in to share some of that news and to really get the juices pumping in terms of what's going to be a great countdown over the course of the next 2 years for the Breeders' Crown right here in Lexington. We're continuing on with the sale. Night number 1, hip number 8 is in the ring, and this is going to be a dual-eligible filly. Those dual-eligible horses, we talked about them coming with a bit of an added premium over the last few years. I don't think that's going to tail off this year. I think there's definitely possibility as we go along, just in terms of how tough the competition here is in Kentucky, but who am I to sit here and say that tough competition is a bad thing? We want to see the elite horses racing year in and year out. But this is a filly by Captain Treacherous that's in the ring. This is a full sister to Beach Cowgirl, that world champion who made close to $500,000. So obviously it's a proven match here in terms of a Captain Treacherous filly coming out of this Camluck mare.
Yeah, the average sales price for Stonebridge Sunday before tonight was $91,750. Beach Cowgirl actually sold here. This was a full sister. Beach Cowgirl was for $60,000 in 2021. And the dam Stonebridge Sunday has had a couple sell for $100,000, $152,000. 60 gets $165,000 for Kentucky Smoke Show.
All right, so we move on now. Chapter 7 is going to be represented here by the next one coming in to the ring. This is hip number 9, and this was the one that we spent a little bit of time getting to know from that Winback Farm consignment.
Yeah, I got to see a little bit of Southern fun this afternoon. This is the first yearling out of the dam, Southern Autumn. The second dam, Alix Hall, produced Flex the Muscle that made $957,000, had 34 wins from age 2 through 8, and produced Sheer Glide, who made $193,000 in her career.
All right, so right now this one already creeping up towards that 6 figures. Filly by Chapter 7, first full again from that Southwind Frank mare. When you think about Chapter 7, you'd be remiss if you didn't think about one of the recent great trotting fillies and mares, and that being Atlanta out of a Cantab Hall mare. But Chapter 7, again, it just feels like the beat goes on each and every year. Joviality, there's another one for you. Armelina, I mean, you could just kind of go up and down that list, and not to mention the Colts when we'll get to those in just a little bit. But we've got this one up to $100,000. I think we've got another interview ready to go. As our producer behind the scenes is Curtis McDonald on this night. He's wearing a lot of hats, Mike, so
he is.
I'm not going to be too hard on him if we can't jump around as quick as I would like. Looks like we're set. I think Steve Stewart, Hunterton Farms, is our guest right now with Jamie.
Steve Stewart joins us now with Hunterton. And before we get into kind of what you're selling today, let's just talk about getting here and getting set up. What process is like that for you guys?
Well, the process of, putting all this stuff together, it takes about a week, just so that we can kind of take our time with it or whatever. So, yeah, luckily we're only 20 minutes away. So you just start the process or whatever. But we've been in these two barns, Barn 3 and Barn 4, for 15 or 20 years. So it's kind of, you kind of know what you need or whatever. It's kind of like pulling all your Christmas stuff out at, what fits on the mantle, that kind of thing. So that's how we do it.
And, 15, 20 years, the same barns, you know what you're coming back to, but how has it changed on your end, obviously technology and what's going on with the sales throughout the decades of doing this?
Well, you used to, way back when, you only filmed the trotters. You didn't film the pacers. Then somebody started filming the pacers, so once you start filming the pacers, everybody has to film the pacers. So then, obviously, we filmed them all. But back then, you had cassette tapes. And the funniest thing was, the greatest thing we ever had was, so you'd put it in the VHS thing or whatever, and you would show the video. But then you would pull it back out. But then somebody wants to see, 10 horses in a row. Well, they don't want to wait till it rewinds. So we had a rewinding machine, and we thought that was the greatest thing. We thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Trying to tell this to younger people like that, they just kind of roll their eyes at us or whatever, that kind of thing, like there's a Stone Age. So then you went to DVDs, and now it's all online, and it's so much. Obviously, it's so much better because people in Europe or whatever, you put it online, and you used to have to mail all the DVDs out to everybody. So there's much easier now. Much easier.
Definitely, so much easier, so much access all around the world. Like you said, people in Europe coming over before they even come here, they know, who they want to look at your consignment. And now, how do you take on clients? So you have multiple clients that you bring in to consign for and bring their horses to the sale. What process is like that on your end?
Well, we don't ever solicit any yearlings. We have more than enough, so we don't, we're different than like Preferred or whatever. That's what they do, right? So they want to sell as many as they can, so to speak, and if they make the sale or make the grade. With us, most of these, I think we prep like 96 of the yearlings that will be sold here, so there's probably 25 or so that are coming from other clients that we don't prep. So of those 96, the process begins in March, February, March or whatever, trying to decide, because we sell at Harrisburg also. So that's, maybe we have a horse that we think needs more time. Or there's one that, more Canadians will go to Harrisburg sometimes. So if you have a Canadian bred, that kind of thing. So it makes it a little more interesting. It used to be that Hunterton, people would always comment, oh, Hunterton only sells their best horses in Lexington. And then we sold the Hamiltonian winner, Forbidden Trade, about, 4 or 5 years ago. So that kind of went out the window a little bit. Then last year, we sold Apex, who won the Mohawk Million. And then we sold the second. So we finished 1-2 in the Mohawk Million last Saturday. And so, and they were both sold at Harrisburg. And then we sold another sweet Lou filly that for a client that has done very, very well. So that kind of goes out the window a little bit, where people trying to project, oh, well, we don't need to go look at Hunterton's horses at Harrisburg. It's not exactly right. So we kind of mix it up a little bit. We're probably one of the few farms that sell at both places. But it's an advantage to us. We like to go to Harrisburg and we've done well there.
And I was actually going to talk to you about the Mohawk Million this year and the success you had this year with that 1-2 finish. Isn't your only success in the Mohawk Million? You guys have had a good connection with that race.
Yeah, we bred the first two winners. Venerate and Venerable, and Venerable is selling her first foal this year, and that will sell very well tonight. And then the next year they were having trouble filling the spots because they wanted, back then it was $100,000 to buy in. So Gino Toscani and Determination would buy 1 or 2 spots just to help it get off the ground or whatever. And I talked to Bill at there, and I said, I think I can probably get some of our guys, because we did I said, we'll probably make as much money at because of the race, because both of those, Venerable and Venerate, became 2-year-olds of the year. And I think a lot of that had to do with winning the Mohawk Million. So I said, to my partners or whatever, I said, what we ought to do is just buy a spot. We don't have a horse, but we'll see what happens. So then we buy a spot. we get a spot. Back then they didn't have to have a lottery. It was just first come, first serve. And then because they were struggling to get somebody to come up with 100,000, enough people. And so we ended up working out a deal with Leonard Ogren, who is the partner with Apex on a horse OL. And so that was trained by Marcus Melander. And all the partners have different, trainers and stuff like that, to where they can text and say, hey, do you have anything? Because you can't find a horse 2 months out on a 2-year-old, because one that's racing early in August doesn't mean they're going to be racing good the 20th of September. So we ended up doing that. So we won it that year. Then 2 years ago, we had a filly that we bred that we ended up going with and finished third. And it was Allegiant, who was the 3-year-old filly of the year the following year or whatever. So that was fine. And then last year we owned part of Maryland. And then this year we had a spot, and we bred the horse, and we owned part of Apex. So yeah, it was a triple play for us. So yeah, to say that we've done well is an understatement. A couple of the people saying that they had called the Mounties and made sure that we were not allowed into Canada. David Anderson, it was really funny.
All fun and games, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
It's a competitive sport, not just the racing, but the breeding as well. I mean, everyone's watching to see who's going to have the top seller each day. And, of course, overall, you want to have one of those overall high numbers for your whole consignment.
That's right. Somebody at HRU or whoever asked me, I said, do you have the sale topper? And I said, I don't know, but we have the potential.
Yeah.
And that's what we have. We have several nice horses. There's, Mission Brief, we're selling that yearling at Harrisburg this year like we did last year with Apex. And so there's not that, the superstar or whatever, an Apex horse, so to speak, at the consignment. But we have a lot of nice horses.
And how do you follow them throughout their career? Once, obviously, they leave here and they go to their respective owners and trainers, how often do you keep in touch with them, or do you just kind of follow online and, of course, cheer for them?
Well, you kind of want to get some information early, because it helps you decide. I remember when Venerable, we sold here for $210, I think, and Dave McDuffie bought her, and we texted Nifty Norman trying to decide who to breed Jolene back to. Did we want to go back to Walner? Did we want to go to Chapter 7 or whatever? So you kind of do that, and then Nifty said, exclamation points, you can't believe how much she grew. You can't believe it was 2 months after the sale. We love her. We think so. You want feedback, good and bad, that helps or whatever. So you kind of halfway stay in touch. We bred quite a few mares to, as an example, staying in touch with trainers we bred quite a few mares to Captain Corey this year, really before they started racing, because a lot of you kept hearing the same thing. I've got a couple Captain Corys I really, really like. And so that kind of spurred us on to breed a few extra mares to him this year, whatever. Now you're a year ahead of everybody. Now everybody's going to breed to him now. So, that helps. So communication, as you say, is extremely important.
And communication everywhere all along. And kind of what's your process? Any superstitions while your horses are in the ring, or where are you watching from?
Well, we always watch from the exact same place, which is in the back ring. Cindy and I sit right next to. We have chairs that sit right next to where the chute that goes down.
Okay, yep.
So everybody kind of knows you're there. And our joke has always been, we'll sit here until we have a bad sale, and we've sit there for a long, long time. So, obviously you have numbers to help us, but the horses have been very good to us.
Well, we look forward to seeing those horses in the ring tonight and all week, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks so much to Steve Stewart for taking some time to talk with Jamie. And he's had a lot of success over the last several years, a lot of success over the course of his involvement in this sport. I'm calling him Mr. Mohawk Million now, though, because each and every year he's out in the winner's circle and connected with just some fabulous trotters. But last year was a huge year for Hunterton Farms, and he alluded to just how well it was and what their expectations are for this year. But when you look at last year's totals in terms of the consigners that that had real success at last year's sale. Hunterton Farms was 100% right there in the mix, and that came from a group of 94 horses that they sold, average price of more than $96,000. Preferred Equine, of course, they are that bulk consigner, and the numbers last year was a record for them, up over $12 million. Kentuckiana Farms not too far behind there as well in terms of where their average price fell at, and they had over 130 horses. There was Hunterton Farms, Crawford Farms, and Cameo Hills. I think you got to give a big shout out to them. From a group of 32 horses, up in the six figures was the average. But those are all consigners, breeders that when you go to, you know what you're getting. They provide you with quality, and they all take a lot of time. As you see when you're here in the mornings and the afternoons during the inspections, Mike, you go around, they will bend over backwards to give you what you need to hopefully bring you on to purchase one of their horses.
Yeah, Hunterton so far is way above their average from last year. Their first horse sold for $190,000 to Andrew Harris for William Pollock. And then they also have the sales topper currently in hip number 4 at $800,000. They are having a big sale already.
Yeah, we're only in the early stages as hip number 16 is going to come into the ring as you are watching Primetime Racing's coverage of the Lexington Selected Yearling Sale, brought to you by Preferred Equine and Harness Racing Update. Wherever you're watching on the Harness Racing Update channels or Primetime Racing, we welcome you in on this Monday night, 7:35 local time here in Lexington. Hip number 16 is in the ring. This here is a Bulldog Hanover, a dual eligible Bulldog Hanover, a colt. Dog Dare You is his name, from Tessa Hanover. And Tessa Hanover has had 5 winners, including American Mercury, that millionaire. But when you go down the page here, you just find consistency in terms of what the mares produce. The second dam triplet Hanover, from 20 foals, 15 winners, Mike. I know that's amazing. A 75%, but 15 winners, and we talk about 14 and better than 55. That's not necessarily a mare from the last decade, right? I mean, we're talking about at a time when a 55, sub-55 pacer, that was going to get you some pretty good coin. So this is a proven family here, and a Bulldog Hanover colt that's in the ring and commanding a pretty good bucker at the moment.
Yeah, the dam Tessa had over an average sales price of just over $65,000. We've eclipsed it here as we approach $200,000. The last one to sell for this much was back in 2017 right here in Lexington. It was American Mercury, who made over $1 million and had 27 victories.
All right, so it was $180,000. That was the price tag there for hip number 16, that Bulldog Hanover colt. Now we're going to move on to a Walner colt, New Jersey and Kentucky eligible. Here is a half-brother to Looks Like Money, that winner of more than $500,000 from the first dam. That's All Money, that Cantab Hall mare. Cantab Hall, I might have mentioned it already. If I didn't on here, I mentioned it somewhere else. What a terrific broodmare sire he has become in the sport. And here is also a colt that's coming from the family, if you go back a little ways, of Snow White. So there's plenty to talk about here when you look at this page. Yeah,
world champion in Snow White. She made just shy of $1.5 million. Diplomacy sold in 2022 for $425,000. Interesting note, won a Wildcat Series back in July, has not raced since. So did win by 4 lengths that day for Dexter Dunn, and trainer Nancy Tactor has been on the shelf since, but a producer of Looks Like Money who made $564,000. This one was third in the Kentucky Sire Stakes final, and at 4 was second in the Graduate Series.
Walner currently sits second in terms of the leading money-winning sires for 2025. That's all age on the trot. Second behind Chapter 7. He's got $8.8 million in earnings, $10.8 million for Chapter 7. Again, you talk about those two. Muscle Hill still hanging in there, though, and that's not a surprise. I mean, Muscle Hill, for just quite some time, he was the preeminent trotting stallion and just made an incredible impact. And now you'll watch more and more as it's his sons who are stepping in and becoming those top stallions as well, his impact when it comes to the mares.
Interesting to note here, look at the stats. Muscle Hill, 1,206 starters. Walner 472 and has more money made. So, and it's almost 3 times as many starters for Muscle Hill than Walner. So Walner is clearly stamping himself as one of the top trotting sires in the sport of harness racing.
And the Walners, again, when you look at how many of them are selling here this week at Lexington, it just tells you that those that were going to breed to Walner, this was their intended target, was to be able to bring that foal right here to the Lexington Select Sale. Walner, of course, that son of Chapter 7, so it's just fitting the father like son as they continue to ride 1-2 in terms of those earnings. What do we got here? Hip number 18.
Hip number 18, it's Well-Bred Yankee. It is consigned by a Preferred Equine. And we talked a little bit earlier about not knowing what the first yearling out of dams will do. Here's the first yearling out of the dam, the Ladies 10, who only shows a qualifying mark. So that's interesting to note. Basically an unraced mare. The second dam, What a Knockout, produced What a Bid Hanover, who made $438,000. At 2, won the Goldsmith Maid, which is a grade 1 event. And at 3, was a winner of the leg of the New Jersey Sire Stakes, the Delvin Miller Memorial, and second in the Zweig.
Hocus Fonset trains What a Bid Hanover, so here is a colt out of a half-sister to What a Bid Hanover, who for a lot of people, that was, I think, no doubt based on the way last season ended off. That's a horse people had pegged as your top 3-year-old trotting filly. Maybe it didn't materialize in terms of what she was able to do this year, but she showed just so much promise. And so there you had it, was the first full out of a half-sister to What a Bid Hanover that just went through the ring there, hip number 18. As we continue on with the Walners, speaking of Walner, you know, a horse that I get to watch an awful lot back home in Ontario is Emoticon Legacy.
Yep.
He is son of Walner, and the way he's been racing as of late, I think he's definitely got to be the favorite right now, not only to be 3-year-old Colt Trotter of the Year in Canada, but potentially right here with the Dan Patch Award. Just a remarkable horse. The mile he put into the Canadian Trotting Classic, sub 150, just blew me away, and he's poised to continue doing big things. So when you talk about those earnings for Walner with significantly less starts than a Muscle Hill, you got a horse like that who still has a ton of coin on the table and could make a ton before the season's done.
Well, what's interesting about these trotters is they seem like they have to be going faster and faster every year. We're seeing a lot more of those sub 150 trots, right? And Walner is producing them on a more than consistent basis. We're seeing some out of Chapter 7. We're seeing a few out of Muscle Hill and Father Patrick. But Walner, we never really got to materialize his career because he was injured for trainer Linda Toscano. So it's great to see that he is producing on the racetrack as well as a sire's. Hip number 19 here, Mark, is going to go over $400,000.
Well, this is one that a lot of people had pegged as maybe the top trotting colt in the sale right here. And just one quick glimpse, first full from a very talented first dam.
Yeah, it's a first yearling out of the dam. Anoka Hanover, who made $792,000, was a Dan Patch 2-year-old trotting filly of the year in 2020. The second dam, Aunt Mel, produced Lady Lyra, who raced overseas and made over $100,000 in career earnings. This is a solid lineage here, Mark, of the first and second dam, as we're currently sitting at $485,000.
Yeah, I mean, this was a horse you knew was going to command a really good price tag. Tactical Landing, of course, had just that massive 2024, the sire of Carl, not to mention some of the other top horses that he has been the sire of, including Tactical Approach. Legion on the filly side, the things she's doing now overseas in Sweden, and potentially next year I could see her stepping in and winning a race like the Elite Lop. That's only going to continue to add to the resume for Tactical Landing. So $475,000. I heard the hammer come down for a trotting colt here, one that a lot of people had highly touted. I think that is a very strong price. I think the fillies are going to go a little bit higher on the trotting side, those high-end, well-bred ones, but on the colt side, $475,000, nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all. That's a lot of change. I know me and you aren't spending that kind of money on a horse here tonight. It's funny you mentioned Allegiant. Allegiant's got a soft spot in my heart. Trainer Vernon Beachy from Ohio. We got to share a good moment in the winner's circle after they won the Hambletonian Oaks elimination. They went on to finish third, and then Allegiant went on to win the Breeders' Crown for trainer Linda Toscano, and it's great to see what she's doing overseas as hip number 20 comes into the ring.
Yeah, earlier this year I had the chance to go to Sweden for the Elite Lop. Just an incredible trip, an incredible experience, and highly recommend to any harness racing fan, if you ever do get that opportunity, you need to take advantage of it, because there really isn't much that you can compare it to in terms of that atmosphere, the electricity, just the entire atmosphere around Solvalla. And on that afternoon in May when I was there, Allegiant was racing on the undercard in another stakes contest on Elite Lop Day, and she just turned in an incredible performance, and you could hear the chatter that was going on amongst the racing folks there about how special they think that mare could be. I'll admit that I haven't necessarily kept as close tabs on what she's done as of late there, but definitely the word was here is a mare that could go on to take the boys next year in the Elite Lot. And hopefully that does materialize because, to your point, kind of some humble beginnings for that trotting filly here in the United States.
Interesting to see the sales price here out of hip number 20, Caught Speeding. This is a Walner filly out of Mazzarelli. The first yearling sold for $200,000 here in Lexington last year. That horse's name is Extra Gears. Does have 2 wins in 5 starts, but has been facing a lot of non-winners in 2 Company. Hasn't really faced a lot of stakes company there for trader Andy Stobie, and just went for over $100,000. So clearly somebody saw something in Caught Speeding.
Yeah, that's just a reoccurring theme right here. 6 figures all across the board. Hip number 21 in the ring there right now. I want to touch on this one quickly before we're going to go to another interview. It's a Captain Treacherous filly out of Rocklamation, that former Dan Patch Award winner that made more than $2.2 million. Not to mention she's produced 4 winners, including Rocknificent. So a proven mare here. You're going back to Captain Treacherous, and I talked about Captain Treacherous in terms where he was stacking up when it came to his 2-year-olds this year. When you talk about him on the all-age earnings, when you talk about sires on the pacing side this season in 2025, he ranks number 2. And I just think a lot of people, they can't look away from a captain, and especially one coming out of Rocklamation with a proven full brother or full sister in Rocknificent.
Yeah, the average sale price here for Rocklamation is $187,857. And if you go back through the last several years, Mark, you see a lot of 200s, 190s. We see a 310 for Rocket Deo, currently approaching $200,000. Hanover Shoe Farms currently has Captain Treacherous, and we know that Hanover Shoe is a big name in the breeding game and harness racing.
Absolutely, the greatest name in harness racing. That is their slogan, and right now we're seeing this one creep over $200,000. So we'll keep our eye here on hip number 21, this daughter of Captain Treacherous. Right now, though, time for another interview and another prominent breeder in the sport, and one that is always front and center here at the Lexington sale each and every year is that of Kentuckiana Farms.
Kentuckiana Farms joins us now, one of the co-owners and partners. Can you tell us your role about what you do and being involved with Kentuckiana Farms?
So I'm one of the owners with Bob and our wives. It's a family-owned operation here in central Kentucky, and my role in the business is I handle a lot of the business side of it, the business, finance, and marketing, industry issues. And right now, I guess the most exciting thing we've been working on is just Kentucky as a whole. In the last several years, Kentucky has just exploded, and the number of farms that have been acquired in Kentucky, there's probably somewhere north of 3,500 acres and 13 farms that have been purchased by out-of-state out-of-state harness people. So our role is to develop a sire stakes program, develop a purse structure, trying to make this place the horse capital of the world of what it is.
And it's absolutely beautiful. So anyone who hasn't, come to Kentucky, horse country, absolutely. And, I've talked to lots of trainers, and they're sending stables down, to the Red Mile for the summer. And there's more racing there as there has been year after year, which is phenomenal, more purse money. And it's, stepping into that kind of grand circuit conversation.
Yeah, it's the exciting thing is we've grown the state to right now there's three different racetracks. There was only one before, meaningful racetrack, and the Red Mile has always been the capital. I mean, it's the focal point. It's when 2- and 3-year-olds race at their peak, and we've been lucky enough to now grow the purses where those horses can race for meaningful purses going into the Grand Circuit. But we start the year off with a track that's in Western Kentucky, owned by Churchill Downs. It's called Oak Grove Racing and Gaming, and Oak Grove has started 5 years ago with 12 racing days and raced for about $700,000 in purses. This year we raced 36 racing days and almost $12 million in purses. So it's exciting, and the last track in the state is Corbin. It's about 65 miles south of Lexington, and that adds up, basically with the fair program, it's a little over right at 100 days of racing, and probably approaching or exceeding $30 million this year. So Kentucky is back for harness racing.
Very exciting. And now, do the tracks work together? Do they kind of offset race dates, or are they all racing at the same time?
No one races at the same time. So there's a committee of the racing commission dictates when you race, and we all work together to see. So Oak Grove starts in mid-March and runs through mid-July. Then the Red Mile starts up in late July and runs through mid-September for the Sire Stakes program and overnight racing, and then there's a little gap of about 7 to 10 days for Grand Circuit, and we'll go 2 weeks, 6 days in Grand Circuit, and during that period of time, I'm guessing it's roughly $5.5 million that they'll race for over those 6 race days.
And what's it like having, some of the top drivers, not just in the States, but we can say in the world, in Canada and across, come here to Kentucky for the summer?
Well, most of them have now bought homes or condos. Yeah. So it's they're actually here all year. It's funny. They obviously have to travel. It's obviously a demanding life, but they start in roughly April when we start our 4-year-old program at Oak Grove. They're down here a couple of days a week racing at Oak Grove for 17 weeks, and that leads them into the summer, and then they jump, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Red Mile, and the weekends either in Canada or New Jersey or New York. So it's we get the best of the best here now, and it's not only the best of the best drivers, it's the best horses. I mean, it's phenomenal, the quality of the animal that we're getting here.
Speaking of horses, have you noticed an influx in, mares and studs that are standing here?
Yeah, so basically what we started at roughly, I'm guessing we're up to about 8 or 9 years ago, we created what's dual eligibility. So if a mare resides in the state of Kentucky for 180 days, her offspring can be Kentucky bred, even though it's sired by a horse anywhere else in the world, Ontario, Frozen Seaman, whatever it might be. And we've grown, I think this year the number will come out at a little over 2,100, 2,200 mares, and we were roughly at about 400 or 500 when we started this. So the dual eligibility and the influxes, I mean, the premiers, I would have to say that some of the top 20% of most of the top 20% of the mares in the industry are now spending half a year at a minimum in the state of Kentucky.
Which is great because it recycles that money and value back into the horse business here.
Oh, it's incredible. Like it's energizing. I've been in this game a long time. I'm 62 years old, and I've never been more energized about what's to come in harness racing in Kentucky. It truly is now the harness capital of the world again.
Well, thank you for joining us here. We look forward to seeing the Kentuckiana yearlings out there in the sale this week.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It'll be a good sale. Everything will be good for everyone.
All right, well, best of luck to Kentuckiana Farms this week. Again, they bring a great group of horses each and every year, and, of course, located right here in the Bluegrass, so it means a lot to them to see where the state of Kentucky is at in terms of harness racing, and with that big announcement tonight that the 2027 Breeders' Crown, you know that they will certainly be beaming. We're moving on here with night number 1, hip number 24 in the ring. This is going to be a dual-eligible colt by Tactical Landing that brings $120,000, so we move on to hip number 25, and you and I were mentioning during the course of that interview as we were taking a glance at what's coming up here, there are several horses over the next little bit that you're very intrigued by. And in fact, I said about one of them, I said, this one's interesting. And you then proceed to show me on your page the word interesting. Where good minds or great minds think alike.
We'll talk about that one here in a little bit. Number 25 entering the ring. This is Hard Drive Armitage. Would you call this Armitage?
Hard Drive Armitage. Yep,
Armitage. The average price is $225,500 for the Damn White Cheetah. This is a Chapter 7 colt. And interesting, you've got horses here that have sold here in Lexington for over $400,000. 2 of them, one of them includes 7 Cheetah, the other Stealing Banksy. Neither have reached that $400,000 milestone, but Very Gated, who is a full brother to Hard Drive Armitage, made $405,170. And it's interesting here to me that we're only at $10,000 on this horse, so somebody's going to get a steal potentially.
Yeah, that's possible. And again, when you see a price like this coming along, it definitely gets you raising some question marks in terms of what the individual looks like. Is there something that people just aren't liking? In today's day and age, a lot of the big buyers are coming here. They've got their vets taking a look. They're checking out, they're x-raying these horses. So there really isn't any I that hasn't been dotted or a T that hasn't been crossed in terms of their homework with these horses. And it kind of goes back to what Steve Stewart was talking about earlier tonight in the broadcast. Back in the day, you were sending out DVDs. Before that, I'm sure VHSs, and you were trying to get your horses seen by as many people as possible. That being said, there was a lot of buyers coming to these sales at the time who only had basically going off of the page. They had an opportunity maybe to look at the horse in person, but they maybe didn't have as much opportunity to do that extra digging, that extra homework. And you see a ton of vets that are circling around the grounds that are employed by these big owners and trainers to give them as much info as they possibly can. So $25,000 is what we're going to see there. A full brother to Variegated, who was second in the New York Sire Stakes just a few weeks back at Batavia. It's a first dam that's already got a couple of winners. So I'm sure whoever ended up being the one that just bought that horse is hoping, like you said, they got a steal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about this for a second. The average price is $222,500. You come here thinking, okay, we're going to get this horse for maybe $75,000, $80,000, $100,000 and just spend $25,000. Somebody may have just gotten a steal. We're going to find out over the next several months if this horse was a steal or if somebody clearly noticed something that maybe wasn't right.
All right, the next one in the ring right now, hip number 26, Wish for a Captain. This is a Bay filly by Captain Treacherous. Out of Wishy Washy Girl by Roll with Joe. Wishy Washy Girl, she was a stakes winner that made over $600,000, took a mark of 51-1. This is her second foal. That first foal hasn't shown up just yet, but was also by Captain Treacherous. So obviously the owners here and the breeders going right back to the captain.
Yeah, an unraced 2-year-old with Work It at the car wash. That was a $65,000 Lexington purchase last year here. The second dam, Wish All You Want, made $220,000, had 20 wins and raced from 3 to 6 years old. It actually raced up at Woodbine.
Well, I don't want to turn the page too quickly on this Captain Treacherous filly, but I'm very interested in hip number 27, and I want to talk about this horse before it gets in the ring. A Chapter 7 colt out of Check Out Trixie by Trixton. Check Out Trixie. She's the dam of 2 winners, including Instagram Model. Here is a full brother to Instagram Model, that stakes winner of more than $500,000, and not to mention the first dam is a half-sister to King of the North, the former Dan Patch Award winner, who we're going to talk about more tonight as his first crop is debuting this season. What do we make here of Tony Pro, hip number 27?
This is a really interesting horse, consigned raised by Cameo Hill Farm. The average price for Checkout Trixie, $390,000. Interestingly enough, the horse that sold last year for $650,000 is unraced at this point. So it's interesting to kind of see these horses that were purchased for big tickets last year and they are unraced at 2. Maybe there's some maturity things going on. Maybe they are or are not going to make it to the races. Like you said, the second dam has produced some solid horses. Check Me Out, producing King of the North, who made $1.1 million. Mushaka Stride made just shy of $100,000. There's a lot of stakes lineage in this pedigree.
There's been a lot of races over the years, and I was a diehard racing fan at a very young age. Check Me Out when I hear that name.
Yep.
I want to say Check Me Out had a win at Dover Downs where she made a break and still came back to win. Somebody is probably yelling at their screen right now saying, you idiot, that didn't happen. Or yes, it did. How could you forget that? Good news is that we have iPads in this day and age, and we can check that all out. And yes, in the Matrix, 2011. There you go. I remember that. That 2-year-old filly did that. She made a break early in the race, ended up spotting them, 12 lengths, and came back to win. She was an incredible filly for trainer Ray Schnitger, and then of course that has transitioned in terms of what she's done as a broodmare. She's the second dam on this one in the ring, hip number 27, which goes for $425,000.
Hip number 28, Sister Girl Blues. This is the horse both of us thought was going to be interesting. It's an unraced dam, a first yearling out of the dam, but what's interesting is the second dam has been a solid producer. Yearlings have earned over $4 million in earnings, including Warrawee U Butte, who won multiple stakes, Warrawee Needy, and Warrawee Vital. Not really sure what to make of Sister Girl Blues here.
Yeah, I mean, the family is there. Unraced mare that I don't put a whole lot of stock into why they were unraced. There can be a lot of various reasons that we're not going to be privy of, and when you look at who the siblings are of that first dam, safe to say that there's some pretty good bloodlines here. It's a Captain Treacherous, once again, this filly. First foal from a Sweet Lou. Captain Treacherous and Sweet Lou kind of been butting heads in terms of those stallion ranks. But the family here, and we'll get to talk more about Warrawee U Butte a little bit later on in session number 1, but world champion on the track. Now she's showing up as a prolific brood mare. It's a filly and a family with some pretty good fillies. So to me, this was one that was going to draw a lot of interest and has already gone up to $110,000.
Yeah, currently sitting at $130,000. Hip number 28, Sister Girl Blues. We're going to see a few horses that are related to Warwi U Butte later on. That was a Dam Patch 2-year-old filly of the year in 2018 and a Dam Patch 3-year-old filly of the year, a world champion. Of course, Warwi Needy was a O'Brien winner. O'Brien 2-year-old pacing colt of the year in 2011. And we're going to see some of these Warwi horses kind of later on in the program. And I know trainer Ron Burke really likes this lineage.
Yeah, I mean, this is a family that's just known for its high speed. Warwi U Butte, when she showed up as a 2-year-old and set a world record in sub 149, not to mention Warwi Needy. High speed he had, didn't matter when he stepped out on the track. And Warwi Vital in that family as well, a horse that is a co-holder of the track record at Woodbine Mohawk Park. And he had just an insane turn of foot. So the speed certainly there in that family, and we'll see if it gets passed on to the Captain Treacherous filly, hip number 28. We're going to roll on with a couple more horses here that we will comment on before we're going to go back to a couple of interviews that Jamie has conducted, as we will be about a quarter of the way through tonight's session. Next up is hip number 29. This is going to be the second foal out of a Some Beach Somewhere mare and Alexis Power. This one by Sweet Lou, and it's a dual eligible named Magic Mac. And the family here, Alexis Power, that first dam, she was a top burner. Second dam, Michelle's Power, she was a champion in Canada. That's the one thing about a night like tonight, though, Mike, is that you don't have to usually do a lot of searching to find some pretty good resumes on any of these horses that are going to go through the ring.
Yeah, I would agree. The first yearling out of the dam, Alexis Delight, is unraced as of now, so we don't really have much to go on as far as what Alexis Power has kind of created. But the second dam, Michelle's Power, at O'Brien 3-year-old pacing filly of the year in 2007, has produced some really nice horses, including Max Jackpot, who was a millionaire in his own right, and Max Marvel, who made $317,000. Both of those horses were multiple stakes winners in their careers, and we're sitting at over $180,000 right now with hip number 29.
All right, so that one drops there, the hammer at $180,000, just like you mentioned. And now we'll move on to hip number 30. And this is a cross that you certainly take notice of, a Chapter 7 out of a Cantab Hall mare. I'll talk about that in a second, but let's introduce you to hip number 30, Nalani Storm, New York, Kentucky eligible, Chapter 7 colt out of the Cantab Hall mare, Fade Into You. Fade Into You is the dam of 3 winners. She's a 100% producer, including Sad Bird Still Sing, New York Sire Stakes standout who's made close to $400,000. But that cross I talk about, Chapter 7 and Cantab Hall, that's the cross that gives you the likes of Atlanta, Incommunicado, and the top earning horse right now in harness racing for 2025, Super Chapter. And that's one that I take notice of whenever I see. We've only got a couple of them selling in night number 1, but this was a horse that I thought would be getting a ton of action.
Yeah, horse sitting currently at $100,000. It's interesting to see what kind of those crosses kind of create, right? As you see the lineage in your sales books, they kind of go back three grand dams, so to speak. And then, the sales prices, Sad Bird Still Sing sold for $190,000. The average for Fade Into You, just over $128,000. So we're going to be above average here for Nalani Storm. The second dam, Fortune of Fables, was sired by Muscle Hill, was a starter at 2 and 3, really never kind of produced a whole lot, but did produce